Doing well, how are you?
Good, good. So,
It's so
James,
good
this
to
is
see you. My
Scott.
God. Hi, Scott. Pleasure to meet you.
Hey James, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. How are you?
I'm very good. Uh,
So, shall I do a little introduction, or should we just sort of chat?
well, I suppose we should probably introduce ourselves to James. Uh, James, I'm Scott Trost. I'm director of the Meisner Institute, and I'm so pleased to meet you today. And thank you for coming.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm so looking forward to chatting with you both.
And of course, you know me. My name's Frances Saxton, and I teach acting through my business. And James was a former student of mine at William and Mary.
Oh my God, I can't. I hope James, you have some stories about Francis, your teacher at
Oh, I
William.
certainly do.
So James is currently touring with the Broadway show Saw the Musical, correct? Are you still in Florida?
Yes, I am. I'm down in Orlando, so we're in off-Broadway. We started off-Broadway at the AMT Theater in New York, and then we've been on the road since March.
You've been on the road for 9 months now?
On and off, so I've had some breaks, but yeah.
Oh my God. I never had the fun of being on the road with something, and I know that a lot of actors dream about that or hear about that. So I would love for if you have some stories to tell or experiences that is this the first time you've been on tour with something?
Yeah, it's my first time on the road with the show, so it's been a wonderful experience. And I, I always tell everyone, certainly pros and cons, but the pros keep outweighing the cons, and that's what keeps me around.
I'd
So
love to know,
go
James,
ahead.
how you actually got the role. That would be really good for our listeners to.
I, Francis, he got the role because he's a talented actor. That's why
Yeah,
he got the role.
no, I mean the audition process. Like, did
Process.
you know anyone? Did you go for the audition? How was it? Et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
And he's very talented, let me tell you. He's
oh,
very
thank you.
talented. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Francis. Yeah, if you want, we can jump in right there with that. So I auditioned for this project back in the summer of 2023. So it was sometime around June or July, and the initial audition for this process was just a virtual submission. So I sent in my headshot resume, my reel of what I had at the time, which was just like two self tapes of me singing against a blue backdrop, and I got called in for a callback. And so the callback happened in the summer of 2023, and I performed for our director, Stephanie Rosenberg, and our lead producer, Cooper Jordan, were in the room. And they sent material from the show. So I sang from the show, and then I did two scenes from the show with them. Um, and I sang once, gave me direction, sang again, and then I did the scenes once or twice. Um, I felt really good about that callback. There are times when like you leave a room and you're like, oh, that could really go either way. And it was just one
Yeah.
of those days that I walked in and I was just feeling on my game for that one. Um, and it's a parody musical, so it's the Saw franchise, and I am so not familiar because horror movies are not my genre of choice. But I watched the first movie, so it's a parody of the first movie before the callback, and so I got a bit of an idea of the character, and we're written very like Avenue Q, like
Oh,
type of humor. So it's like really
yeah.
takes it, puts the whole movie on its head, and very like late night television kind of like humor. Which I really leaned into in the audition and was told later they were like that's what they were looking for. They wanted to see if people would really lean into that type of humor. Um, and I got the call like 2 weeks later that they I booked I was the first understudy when we ran off Broadway.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
for the track that I'm in. It's a three-person show, so it's a little small but mighty cast, and we all play multiple characters, which I love that kind of work. Um, and our lead producer, Cooper Jordan, told me later, when I was on the phone with him when he was giving me the offer, and he was asked, he's like, and I just wanted to say, like, like, why do you have where are all the people from Chaplin in your reel? And I was like, oh, that's something that my voice teacher in college, Paige McNorton, gave me. It's a piece that like I just think tells a huge story and I love, and I would sing it today until I die. And when he moved to New York back 15 years ago, when he first moved to New York, he was an usher for that show when it ran on Broadway. And he was like, it was a huge reason why we cast you. He's like, don't get me wrong, we loved you, but he's like, we loved a lot of people in the room. And he was like, and that was just kind of like my thing. So it's one of those things where like you never know why someone
Wow.
what makes you stick out in someone's mind. And that really was what kind of gave me the edge in that audition there.
Did you
So,
call your voice teacher at college and tell her?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I've seen Phaedra a couple of times, so it's been nice to keep up with her.
Oh, that's nice.
James, that's a great story. You know, we all have our stories of how we moved into some jobs that just seem so impossible to get. I'm curious, did you have anything else on your resume that was going to stand out for them?
No, not particularly. So this was really my big first professional contract because I graduated in May of 2020. So there was not a lot of performance to be had
Yes.
at the time. And
Oh.
I didn't study theater in college. I studied chemistry, was my major in college.
Well, I want to get to the chemistry in a little bit because I'm so
Yeah,
curious about this career choice that you had to make at some point. But
definitely.
so you're saying that you had some self tapes of songs that you sang and you sent those in, and that's what got you the callback?
Yep. And that was some advice I'd gotten from some friends because it was, all of these auditions, these that were initially just, virtual auditions and not even like in-person Zoom virtual
Right.
auditions, just send in material. And I was like, but I don't
Right.
have any material. My friends were like, record something. Like, you can record whatever. And so that's what I did.
Well, I'm hoping that when we put this together, we have that tape that we can show because I would love for people to see. Here's an audition tape that actually got you a callback
Oh,
that then led you to get that because
do you still have that?
It is still the last video, that song, Where All the People, is still the last video on my reel that I had sent over
Oh,
to
that's
Francis.
so
Still the
great.
last cut. I can't get rid of it, even with other stuff that I have now. It's just
I mean, it's true. I've had students that I have coached privately and said, record something and send it and try and get an agent. And people have been signed with nothing on their resume
yeah.
mm,
just from having to show that they can perform because it
yeah.
really is something. But going back to the parody, you were in title of show though.
I was. Yes, I
And
was.
we saw that. That was at William and Mary. They did title of show. And it really is that sort of sense of humor, right? Do you
Yes.
think that was something that they saw on your resume a little bit too?
It certainly could, and that is still, I believe that is still on my resume there in one of my professional
Yes.
titles. Because I love that show and that type of performance. I really just love a character like that that's written into that like toe the line, maybe some like little edgier jokes, and but it really
Wasn't
just
it written by the people of South Park or
that's a wonderful question that I don't know the answer
I
to.
think it was. I think it was. It was written, I don't know. I think it was written by someone who wrote a very famous cartoon. It might have been South Park.
Yeah, there you go.
So so James, already there's so many things I want to hear about, but let's go back to the chemistry thing because I was reading that on your resume. You're clearly a really you. I mean, I took chemistry in high school, and my brain was just not there. And but obviously you have that part of your brain that's just doing all that stuff, and so you're smart.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I mean, it's not like, you're born with it, so it's not like you get credit for it, but it's like your brain is like doing that stuff and it sounds like you have a passion for that too, yes?
Yes, I do. I really do. And so it was a weird blessing in its own way that there wasn't any performance to be had right after I graduated because it didn't leave me even that option to consider to
Right.
start auditioning and start trying to perform. So I used my degree, which to my mom's credit, she was very, very pleased. And I got a job. I worked. in a andrology and endocrinology lab with the Reproductive Medicine Associates of New Jersey. So I wasn't really doing chemistry, I was doing more biology-based work. Uh,
Wow.
but it
All
was
right, wait, James, you just jumped, you just threw out all these words. I don't even know what they mean. Andrology, what the hell is that?
So andrology is all things men's reproductive health. So we were there for helping couples who otherwise are not able to naturally conceive, have families and start building their own families. So we were focusing all things on the men's reproductive side. And then you have your embryology lab, which is a lot more of like your women's reproductive side.
So you're helping people have babies
Yeah,
and have families.
Wow.
yeah. It was really it was
He's a good
incredibly
human.
rewarding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. It was incredibly rewarding work and was a very difficult decision to leave.
Mm.
Uh, but when everything started opening back up, then I still had that itch that I was like, I don't know that I want to miss the opportunity to have tried this performance thing.
Let me ask you about that, James, because I also had another career that I started doing and loved it and was passionate about it. But was there some inciting incident or something that all of a sudden you go, oh my God, I want to go that direction. Can
Yeah. A big deciding factor for me was actually my partner Kyle's first roommate in New York. Her name was Sharik, and she is now on the directorial side of things, but had been doing a lot of like background acting work in the city at the time. And she was in like to the fall of 2021 into the spring of 2022. Her advice to everyone was to like quit your job, go after what you love. Like, why aren't you doing what you love? And so I had probably half a dozen conversations with her that went the same exact way that I was like, oh, but I don't know if I'm ready, whatever, whatever. And she really kind of kicked me in the butt and pushed me to kind of take that leap.
Has there been a performance that I know this is totally left field, but a performance that you have loved the most being on tour? Like, has there been a place or a performance
Oh, that's a
that really
great
sticks
question.
out or that you remember?
So just a couple of weeks ago when we were in Fort Lauderdale, we did two shows at the Broward Center in Fort Lauderdale and they were spectacular. And we, while we're on the road, we perform in every kind of venue. We'll get these real state-of-the-art centers like the Broward Center, and then we also do these smaller black box theaters, and both have their pros and cons, frankly, for our size show. Sometimes like that intimate black box setting works better with a more like 100 intimate audience.
Yeah.
But we sold out this Broward Center. Um, and I have a lot of family and friends. My partner Kyle is from Fort Lauderdale, and so he has his family came to see the show. A lot of our friends in the area came to see the show. I have other extended family in the area, so it was this incredible. We had such a receptive audience. I had like 15 people at the show, which it's nothing better than when you get to perform for people you love. Because I love performing for everyone, but there's that special
Yeah.
extra, you know.
Would you do another
So that
touring show? If this ended and you were offered another touring one, is that something you would do? You would consider?
I would I would definitely consider going on the road again. It's been a blast. Our first leg of the tour took us out through the Pacific Northwest, and we did 8 cities in 12 weeks or so.
Wow.
And it was all places that I'd never been before. A lot of my life has been localized to this East Coast. And
Mhm.
so the only city I'd been to before was Colorado. We were in Greeley, Colorado, which I hadn't been to. My brother lived in Denver, which is not far. But besides that, everywhere else was a brand new place for me, and that part of this experience has just been incredible. The traveling aspect has been so unique and so special, and I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity.
So you can select areas that if you ever want to move there, you've got them on the map.
If ever I stop performing, I think I'm going to Portland, Oregon. I loved it, and it was
Oh,
just,
really?
gosh, that Pacific Northwest, it can't be beat. It's not the place to be for aspiring artists. There's plenty of theater to be had there, but I'm itching for that, that Broadway, that big stage. So New York's the place to be for now, but should that ever change, I might find myself out west there.
James, I'm curious. So you're you're a kid, you're growing up. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Cranford, New Jersey.
All right, so you're in New Jersey growing up, regular parents?
So just my mom growing up. So it was
Okay.
me. I was I'm one of five kids. My oldest two siblings are my half siblings from my dad's first marriage. And so I grew up, my house was my immediate older and my immediate younger brother.
All
Uh,
right.
and but just a pretty
So
typical.
yeah. When did your, what was your first experience with acting or singing, or I mean, how did that start?
So my oldest brother is 10 years older than I am and has has performed all of his life as well. And when he was in high school, I was 8, 9, 10 years old. Um, and so we went to go see every show that he did when he was in high school, and that was just so formative for my my elementary years and being like, it's your older brother. I was like, the only thing I knew was to be like him,
Yeah.
and my immediately older
Oh,
brother was and performed, and so I went and performed, and then my younger brother went and performed, and so we all had this tie. Certainly attributes back to him and his performing. If he didn't do it when I was young, who knows what I would have done. But
now do any of them do it now, like you?
so my oldest brother is still a performer. He's currently at home with his toddler. He has a 2-year-old, and they're expecting,
Oh,
so he's a stay-at-home dad. But before she was born, and right through my sister-in-law's parental leave, he was working at Disney, performing at Disney. He was friends with a bunch of characters, and he performed in the Lion King show. He was a
wow.
stilt walker for Disney, so any track that had stilts in it, he did for them. So he'd been performing in Disney before while they were uh, right after they got married, came down here. He performed for 5, 7 years in Disney before he left to stay at home.
Wow.
So was your mother the one that was starting all of you into this? I mean,
It
how
was
did your older brother, I'm so curious what, obviously you had to have some family support to be doing
Yeah.
this.
definitely, definitely, and his mom is so incredibly supportive of him. Um, and truly how he got into it in high school, I have no idea. Like, I'm sure it was the people he was friends with, and that's just the way that it went for him. But yeah, I've been very blessed. I've had nothing but incredible support through this whole performing process.
Oh God,
So, oh,
yeah,
go on,
go.
Scott.
No, no, because Francis, I have so many questions. Your
So
turn, your
I have
turn.
a question. If
Yeah.
Please.
if a young person wanted to move to New York, get into acting, and they're watching this and they're like, "Oh, I want to do what he does. I want to get into it." So it's a two-part question. Okay, so um, what would you other things that you would recommend that them do? So, for example, it could be if you move to Manhattan, take a dance class, or do this, do this, do that, and it could be very basic, just basic things that you think. And then the second part of the question is there anything that you would like to add to your resume that will then progress your career that you can see
Mm.
yourself doing?
Yes,
Yeah,
I 100% agree with classes. They are so accessible, and I don't do enough of them. And it's a goal of mine that when I'm back from tour and I'm back off the road, that I get into some more classes. But I've been taking dance classes. I continue uh, voice lessons. They're so important to me. Like, that's really the voice lessons are where I'm the strongest. Where I'm the weakest are the acting and dance classes, and I would love to continue to grow there because I think we're lifelong students. Like, I think that you can never stop learning, and it can only continue to better. And it's something where, like, my biggest advice is never to feel like you're bogged down. You're like, oh, I'm not ready. I should be somewhere else before I start, because I think
right,
it is a job where you learn on the job and you
Yeah.
continue to learn as you grow. If you wait for this moment that you feel like you're ready, I feel like that moment's going to always feel like it's 2 steps ahead of you.
right.
So and which was advice that I think I needed to hear when I first took the leap and was anticipating, making this career pivot where I was like, oh, but like, I didn't study in school, and so everyone who's my age has this background that I don't have, and I'm gonna be like 4 steps behind. And my friend Tariq was like, yeah, so she was
Oh,
like,
James, you
I'll
were
tell
you
you
were
no.
amazing. You did so much at William and Mary, and the fact that you weren't even a theatre major. I mean, your voice alone. I mean, you were in Into the Woods, right?
Yes, I was. Yes, I
Oh
was.
my gosh! And my husband actually built the set for that, and it
It was
was
astounding.
phenomenal. But you played one of the princes and did that song, and oh, he's amazing, Scott. He's an amazing performer. So what
I,
would you recommend? What would you so dance classes and voice classes, and then what could you see yourself you adding a skill? Like, is there anything that you want to add to your skill set? As a like
Oh my
acting, but anything else that's kind of random? Like you said, your brother did stilt walking or something. Like, is there something that you would like to do like that?
That's a wonderful question. Maybe not as out there as that. I played piano through all through college. I took lessons with Professor Zwelling at William and Mary, who was astounding. She was a wonderful teacher, but I've fallen off of that since graduating, and so not quite as exciting as still walking, but to kind of further, round myself out in this performing arts industry, to get back into piano lessons would be a goal of mine.
well, that leads me to a question, James, because it sounds like I've never heard you sing, but it sounds like you're blessed with a beautiful voice. And
Thank
if you
you.
can play piano, that means you now could be part of a singing group, um, and have a career in that as well. Is that something you're thinking about?
Not so much that way towards a singing group. I mean, like really my heart's on the stage, and it's you know I love that, like that pop group kind of environment. I love going to a concert, but I don't see myself on at that kind of performance. I think the whole art of storytelling with musical theater is just has too much of a grip on my heart here.
Uh,
But what I do really see is I would love to teach it one day. I would love, and being able to play the piano as a voice instructor, I think is just it makes it's an astounding skill set to be able to have, to be able to do both. Phaedra McNaughton is an incredible pianist. She was my voice teacher at William and Mary, and and I would just watch her sit down and play, and be like, that's not fair. Why can you do both so well? So that
You
would
could
be
be in a movie musical, for example. Like, if you look at the Queen movie,
mhm,
it was phenomenal. One day you might be playing a real person who plays the piano, like in one of these musicals. So that might be something that you might think about.
would be incredible. And again, I mean, I'm not turning my nose at anything that comes my way.
I had the good fortune to get to know Jeff Goldblum, and he's a jazz pianist, and he
Mhm.
has his own little jazz group.
Of course he
And
is. Of course
of
he
course,
is.
yeah, he does everything. He's amazing. But I mean, I thought I was thinking of you because it's just something he does just to get out and meet people and not have to worry about the sort of the professional pressure of his movies and that sort of just a place to relax and enjoy himself with music.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have that same love of just the art of singing and piano and just all that. So
Definitely.
yeah.
I'm going to switch gears now since we were so positive. What has been your greatest challenge in your career so far? So it could be a
And
failed audition, which would be very nice to hear about. No, I'm kidding. Uh,
You keep talking about these failed auditions, Francis.
It's
I don't.
always good to have a failed one because then you can learn of what you can do better next time, right? I mean,
But that for most of us, that means a list of about 600 failed auditions.
yeah, right.
but is there something like a challenging moment? It could be like an audition or a rehearsal or, you
hmm
know,
I think to me the biggest challenge I face is that imposter syndrome of going in, and everyone's phenomenal. It is an industry that is so populated with incredibly talented people. And so it can be daunting to go into these rooms with these people, and you do a lot of external comparison, right? Like I look at someone, you're like, oh, they have this, they have this, they have that, and I don't have any of those three things. So I think a lot of it to me has been trying to reframe that mindset of you can only really compare yourself to yourself. It's a very
Yes.
personal game where I can only be better than what I was yesterday. And if I spend my time comparing myself to what everyone else is, I think it just doesn't really serve us as performers because you're not that person. You're never going to be that person. The only person that you can be is the best version of yourself. And to bring that into the room, I think is to be able to bring in your most authentic self and the most professional version of yourself. I think that's what people see and what endears you to people, and that's what ends up booking you the job with the right people in the right room. And you're not going to be right for every room. And I think realizing that and coming to terms with that is the hardest thing. And I certainly haven't. I can sit here and speak like I
I
have.
love that so
Well, that's
much.
yeah. And James, I was gonna ask you, we we say that over and over again.
Yeah.
We find ourselves right back in that same feeling of insecurity and imposter syndrome. So I think part of it is not so much, oh, I faced the demon and I defeated it. It's the realization that you're going to face it over and over and over again,
Yeah.
probably the rest of your career, and that you're just going to move through it in whatever way you do.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Is there a little trick that you have? So for example, you might be in the room, maybe those thoughts go through your head. Is there a trick that you, James, have where you say, snap out of it? Is there anything that kind of helps you?
That's a great question. I don't think I necessarily do. They can be really long days, especially at these bigger like open calls. It's easy to get into that mindset if I'm going in for a callback, right? Because it's like they've
Right.
seen me, they like me, I can come in and be me because that's
Yeah.
already been enough for me
Yeah.
to get back into this room with them. But some of these monster open calls, and forget the female presenting open calls, I don't know how anyone who is female presenting makes it in this because they take this experience and multiply it by four with the number of women
Yeah.
who are just
Yeah.
going at this industry. Um, but I think like going in and they can be really early mornings. Like show up to Pearl Studios, so the Actors Equity Building at 6 in the morning, and you sit there, and sometimes you're seen at 3, and sometimes you're not seen the entire day, and it's just
Wow.
and it's an exhausting day, and it's to me it's trying to remember to like that it's a job that I'm here and that I love what I'm doing. At the end of the day, it's growth no matter what happens, whatever comes from it. So I think that
Yeah.
mindset's important to stay in. That's what I try to keep myself at when those days get long and hard.
Yeah. I want
Wow.
to ask a practical question because it's something that I hear so often in Los Angeles is I'm yeah, are I'm assuming there have been some times when you were not being economically supported by your acting, and so you need some kind of backup during that time.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
And so have you faced that or figured out? I mean, because I constantly am talking to people saying I have to find a job where I have complete flexibility so that I can leave it at any point. But that means I'm taking jobs that don't pay very much because most jobs with flexibility don't pay. I mean, so then I
Right.
don't have enough to eat and so that means I'm going to have to sleep in my car. And if I sleep in my car, then I mean it's just on, just endless sort of
Yes.
figuring just the survival part. Is that something that you've been faced with and have any insights in?
So I've been incredibly blessed and fortunate that I haven't faced it as much as I know some others of my peers have in the city. Um, the it didn't feel so much like a blessing when I did start working, and I felt like they like I played my little tiny violin like woe is me, there are no auditions to be had, I'm losing these early years of my potential career. um but I lived at home at my mom's and I worked in this lab for 2 years, and I it was COVID. I saved probably 80% of my paycheck because I didn't pay for rent, I didn't pay for food. I went home, my mom cooked for me. It was
Oh,
I
nice.
it was I was so fortunate to have had that. And so I left this job with like a little nest egg, which was part of why I was so felt comfortable to take the leap, move into New York City. And also should anything ever happen, my mom was a 35-minute train ride
Oh,
away.
that's
So,
nice. Yeah.
I wasn't someone who's coming in moving from Lord knows where, some other part of the country where you don't have that type of support system. And I didn't accrue student loans when I went to college. My mom was able to support me through college, which I'm so incredibly blessed for. So I've not had that issue as much as some of my peers. I tutor a lot as what to keep making income. And even on the road now, I keep a good 10 kids who I tutor through different levels of math and science. And
Wow, that's impressive.
yeah, that supplemental income has been a game changer for me personally. And I think having that form of supplemental income is so important.
Yeah.
Um, but
Is
but
that
I
something you would recommend to other performers? Like if they have a skill set like that to tutor,
yes.
and that's a way of staying flexible, right?
Yes, because that I make my own schedule and I move the kids around as I can. And especially in this world of where I started tutoring right out of college, and it was all Zoom remote anyway because no one was meeting with anyone in person. So that platform has continued and is more
Yes.
acceptable than I think it would have been even like 10 years ago before the pandemic. And so when I tell parents that I offer remote tutoring, no one bats an eye, which has been wonderful. And I try to meet with, if it's anyone who I find like in person, like a lot of my students come from different Facebook groups around where I grew up that my mom and her friends are on, and they'll blast my info onto those groups. And when I'm home, I will meet with the kids in person, which is great. But when I'm on the road, it tends to work out well. So if you can monetize a skill set, that is, I think, been the big game changer for me. But it's really an experience that I know that other people, it is, I can't speak to what I know other people have had to go through, even with people who have student loan payments to make. Like it's one huge chunk of things that I know that I don't have on my plate, which I know I'm so fortunate for.
So it
When
might
you
be that they do have a skill set, but that maybe they don't realize that they could do that with it, right?
Definitely.
It might be something they say, I'm really good at this. No one's
Yeah.
going to pay me, but they might. So they might as well, try it.
Yeah.
And
is your mother open for other people adopting her as their mother?
I
Because
know,
I
yeah,
could
your
really use
mom's
a
your
mother
biggest
like this.
cheerleader.
So if you don't, if could you sort of just ask her, James, if maybe there's a few other folks that can come in and live with her and just be
I'd
there.
like to stay. I'd like to come and visit.
Hey, please, we have extra bedrooms in the house. We she's
Will
a
she cook for us?
yes, 100%.
What's her favorite meal?
She's an Italian mom, so it's all
Italian
Italian.
food? I'm there. I'm there.
No.
I'll get in the car right now.
James, seriously, when you talk to your mother, please let her know that she's one of the most amazing people I've ever heard about,
Really.
and she deserves everyone in the world that is in the performing arts should we know what that can mean, the difference of having a family member who loves you and supports you and helps you out. So
Scott's trying to get more Italian food, aren't you,
no,
Scott?
Yeah.
I had a similar experience. I had support from my family for some hard years, and I know, and so when you're talking about that, I know it can make all the difference.
Yeah.
And it can, especially when you meet people like you say, friends who don't have that, and their lives are just so much more challenged in
Mhm.
this really hard profession.
Yes.
I am so impressed with you, James. This is my first time meeting you, and you seem like amazing, and Francis said you would be this amazing, so
Oh,
I'm
well, how about you share a funny story from acting class? I don't remember anything apart from the fact I did make you do animal work and run around
you
the.
made him do animal work,
Well,
Francis.
I think it's Grotowski, and I thought, well, we're gonna do
Oh,
classical scenes. And so we're going to make our characters into animals. And James did not approve.
Good,
Um,
good, James.
and he was the sweetest guy. But I mean, you can tell he's such a sweet guy. But he walked into the class and his face, he was not impressed.
Good, good. That's a good sign, James.
Francis called me to talk about doing this Zoom call here, and brings up this story, and I was like, oh my God, I don't remember that part of class. I was like, clearly
I
I left a
even
bad
remember
impression
where we
last
were
night.
standing. I mean, I remember where we were standing at the beginning. It was the beginning and end. We only did it a few times, but I remember you coming and standing right in front of me and just going, and just,
What I want to know, James, is I want to know, you've obviously you've been very generous about talking about the influence that people have had in your lives. Is when you think of Frances, and I'm gonna use Frances because she was one of your teachers. What is there something that sticks out as like the what has she added to you that has really been important in your life, do you think?
Oh my gosh, I can't begin to even express Francis and the entire faculty really at William and Mary. Just
Yeah.
I could not be more grateful than for the experience that I had there. Specifically in that class with Francis, we had a small class. We were only like 5 students in that
yeah,
class that semester. And so the to have that one-on-one time with
Yeah.
a teacher as versed as Francis is for that whole semester just was uh, unbeatable, frankly. And there's a play that Francis introduced me to. Rabbit Hole was one of the plays that we read and we studied in class, and I, I've known my share of grief and in my young life, and there's a scene in there when the mom and the grandmother, two characters, and I'll forget their names, but are talking about grief, and she uses a metaphor of like something in your pocket that you grow around, but every now and then, like you brush and it's there and you feel it. And I think the way that we analyze that scene in class, and I've kept that with me. I use that metaphor in life all the time with anyone who goes through anything with grief, and I think that that to me is uh what's even more important at that level and that fundamental the when you're so formative stages of life as a college student, as a young adult, um between Francis and Cameron Johnson, Christopher Owens, Elizabeth Wiley, uh, Lori Wolf, like Phaedra, to name. I'm gonna miss
yeah.
names of professors at William and Mary who just were so impactful and managed material and concepts that were difficult and emotional so well, and to provide those spaces, like I couldn't have been more grateful for having those that opportunity at such a formative age.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, James.
That means a lot.
Thank you.
And you if you do decide to teach this craft, I'm guessing you're gonna be the same type of teacher. That's my hunch, James. You're gonna have a really
I would
huge,
Yeah.
I would hope so. I would hope so. I have just the most incredible people to model it after if I do.
yeah. Oh my God, this is a love fest.
I
I
love
love
this. I know. I
it's
know. I love this so much.
yeah. Um, I mean, boy, it sounds like you're already having just some amazing experiences that are going to
Yeah.
be like on your list of things I'm proud of and things I'm so grateful that I had. Is there, I hate to even talk about like, is there something that you are kind of going, you mentioned teaching, which I think is interesting, but is there any like, is there a particular thing or experience that you are kind of finding yourself still going, God, if I could just have that, anything that you think of?
Or a role that you
Oh,
might want to.
I didn't want to get so specific because it could be you know, a standing ovation, for example,
Oh, okay.
Mm.
is a dream that, or, some people dream of like an Oscar or a standing ovation or a particular role or an experience, or, I'm just curious, is there sort of things still in your kind of your dream stage that you think about or fantasize about?
Yeah, I mean, I actually did a New Year vision board with a friend of mine recently. Uh and it's it's tough. I don't necessarily dream of the the awards and the acclamation, and as wonderful as it would all be, I don't know that it's necessarily why I feel like I'm here. I find so much joy in the craft, and to have that, it's the small moments to me that I think I find more important. And even in this stage, we were so blessed because the Saw franchises already has this massive following, and there are a lot of people within that following who are musical theater people, and so they come see our show, and it's just, and we get these super fans who come to the show, and I feel like a total fraud because I'm not a super fan, and so they'll message me, be like, but they'll reach out on Instagram, a lot of Instagram, for young people, and I think that that's what I find most special, is like, you don't know who you impact in what way or why, but I think that those small moments of
Yeah.
knowing that you've had an impact on someone else, I think, is what's important.
And
Uh,
that will probably give you years and years as a performer. The fact that you're enjoying the journey, right?
yeah,
Mm.
You just love it so much. You love the craft. It'll just keep you working. Yeah.
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 James, I'm so glad you said that. I think
Yeah.
there's so many young people that I work with around the world, and sometimes they're fixated on that big award or the
Yeah. The
fame,
money.
and and I think both Francis and I share your feeling, which is it
Yeah.
is those small moments.
It's the moment. Yeah.
When a guy comes up to me after a show and says, "God, it made me think of my father, and I'm going to give him a call tonight and
Yeah.
tell him I love him." That's to me,
Yeah.
and you're saying I think the same thing, and I do think that is our reward, as in this profession.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. To
I,
pass it along.
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Good
so
karma. Putting good karma out there.
uh,
Yeah.
when are we going to get a chance to? I mean, you guys have already met. Where are you now? You're in where?
So I'm
Florida.
I'm actively in Florida, but we are going to be
Florida.
leaving. We're going to be in Atlanta for the month of February, then we're going on to Texas for March, and then this contract wraps out March 17th. And then we'll see where the show goes from there. If our producer had it his way, I'd do it till I died. So we'll see.
Don't say that. It's Saw the musical. That's
That's true. It's true. It could happen sooner than later.
Uh, I think we have to go, right?
yeah, this is so fantastic. Thank you so much, James, for
No,
carving out
I
this time
really
for
appreciate
us.
you thinking of me and bringing me on. This was so
James,
incredible.
I hope you know you are the first person that we've interviewed.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You are our you. I asked Frances who she wanted to start with, and she said I want to start with James.
Yes. And perhaps we'll interview you same time next year and you'll be saying, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here.
Yeah, perhaps we'll call you back and say, hey, that first one we just really was so chaotic that we need to do it again. But
This was
I
uh,
think
good.
this was incredible. I would never have thought I was your first interview. This felt seamless to me. So this was awesome.
thank you so much, James.
I
You're
love this. Yes. Thank you so much.
all right.
Hey, it was a pleasure to meet you, Scott. Francis, please say hi to Brian for me. I hope you guys are
I
doing
will, and we'll see you. We'll see what happens. Let us know after March
well.
what you end up doing.
I will keep you posted for sure.
All right, James. Thank you so much. We love
Pleasure,
you.
you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.